Tanya and Uri and myself have started collaborating about 2 years ago, I think. It was working on the Expo, World Expo for Milan 2015. We met Eyal actually maybe a year into the project.
It was important for us from the start, since we are doing a building which can be easily transported from one place to another. It's really about the concept of packing it and taking it somewhere else, which makes it an object which is both a space, a building and a product. And I think this is where we felt during the design process that we want to bring in an industrial designer, not only for the technique or technological expertise, but also for the point of view of looking at it as a product which could be even, I would say, mass-produced at some point.
I was in Israel visiting my daughter. Juliana came to see me and she looked around and said, "What are these little huts everywhere?" And I looked up and I suddenly noticed what I had absorbed into my visual memory, but hadn't really sort of struck me particularly because that is such a familiar sight for me. They are what is called in Hebrew sukkot, which means little fugitive structures that Jewish families in the diaspora, but very specifically in Israel, add onto their houses at this time of year, celebrating a number of things. One is a festival that celebrates the book of Exodus, which is the second book of the Old Testament, the movement across the desert from Egypt to the Promised Land, the Israelites' movement. In addition to that, September, there's an autumn harvest. And just like in many parts of the world, in ancient times, harvests were celebrated with festivals and dancing and various prayers and so on. So the sukkah, which was this little wooden construct, partly open to the skies, that was attached to almost every Israeli house, and families sat and ate all their meals there. Juliana turned to me and said, "But Jean, it's like your fugitive structures." And I think that is where the idea of the sukkah clicked in. I had chosen the architects, and when we had our first meetings, they loved the idea.
The whole concept started for all of us, really, after being here for the first time, seeing the pavilion which was here. Well, it was casted, everything was poured into place, was very sturdy. And when we started this discussion about what would be different about our pavilion, seeing as we live thousands of miles away, and the first thing that was so obvious and came to mind was this must be a very, very lightweight structure that would be produced in Israel and shipped over here. So that immediately brought us to this language of construction.
I think this was really the starting point, trying to think what does it mean to be invited to do a fugitive structure. Like Liat mentioned before, us coming from miles and miles away and actually being hosted here in Australia, and knowing that this pavilion would go at a certain point, whether it's a half a year or 9 months, it doesn't matter, but it is a fugitive structure. And it brought us quite quickly to the idea that we want to leave no traces. And this is why we developed this structure that actually has no foundations. It's a tensile structure, weighs about 7 kilos in total with the fabric on it, and needs those cushions that are filled with sand to hold it down because it wants to sail away. So I think this is the main trigger for our first conceptual discussions and the way the project developed.
We have really been dealing with materials that are not only new for us, but I am pretty sure that in their usage they're new to architecture and the way that they're being used. We really wanted to avoid at all costs using steel, using heavy construction, using things that you would do in a pavilion even, or in architecture, and then dealing with these materials that are not meant to be used in this way, with all the challenges that come with it.
This way, I can say aesthetically it's been a complete triumph. It looks like a little tent settlement. The Sway Pavilion has been timely, to say the least. And of course it's an aestheticized, it's an art installation, an architectural installation. It's not made as a series of tents for people to live in. It's made to look beautiful, and it does look beautiful. From a technical point of view, it's been a huge challenge. With strong winds and with heavy rain, and Sydney has quite a dramatic climate at times, we've had to do more maintenance technically than we expected to do.
In Judaism, being such an abstract religion, actually the word for God and place is the same word, which is makom. And then there is not a specific place for worship, and worship can happen anywhere. So in this sense, architecture is not so important in Judaism. But the sukkah is of course a three-dimensional space that is part of the religion. And then in this sense it is a great contribution, and it raises questions that are really relevant today, and of course totally compelled with the idea of the fugitive structures.
All the initial photographs we've seen are from the rooftop of Tel Aviv. It's quite industrial, and first time we saw it here all together, we were like, it just completely transformed not only the courtyard, as Jean says, but for us it transformed the project. My wish would be to see it in other places, and just to see how it transforms not only the site but the pavilion itself.
I think one of our successes was when Jean said how the courtyard has been totally transformed, and more specifically when she said, I didn't realize my garden was so big. And this really made us all very happy.